What do Fani Willis, the former Fulton County District Attorney, and Lisa Cook on the Federal Reserve have in common? I'll leave time for you to fill in the blank. That and Donald Trump is trying to crush them out of existence, violate their due process rights, and try to again interfere with the rule of law. New subpoena out for Fani Willis's travel records during the election. And of course, Donald Trump trying to get the Supreme Court to allow him to gain control of the Federal Reserve and its interest rate setting mechanism. We cover that and so much more on the Legal AF podcast. And here's a clip. News. So Fani Willis, Fulton County, Georgia prosecutor who successfully brings an indictment against Donald Trump and then, starts dating the special prosecutor in the office that she picked for the job of prosecuting Donald Trump. I mean, like of all people she had a date, that was the one, which normally wouldn't matter. It sounds like it's an HR issue, but it became like a big issue for MAGA, and they used it as an excuse to try to disqualify her. It led to an embarrassing hearing. I'm going to be frank. I'm not sure a white guy would have been subjected to this. I'm not sure a white female prosecutor would have been subjected to what she was subjected to. But she eventually gets bounced. Trump gets elected. The case gets put on ice. Now it's going to be assigned to a new prosecutor. And now it looks like, Katie, what are you hearing about this subpoena to try to find her travel records again? So you and I have to hear about her going to Sonoma or wherever and sipping wine with her boyfriend.
So wait, let me be very clear and let me clarify, right? So a couple of things. I was literally living in Fulton County last year for this case. And I will tell you this, there are no guarantees that a new prosecuting attorney's office in Georgia that picks up this case after it's reassigned, there are no guarantees that they're going to continue to run with the case. They may wholesale drop all of the charges, some of the defendants, some of the charges, who the hell knows. But then remember, too, this is still operating in the context of the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States. So that's a whole other K-pop episode for the two of us.
By the way, I'm surprised we didn't run into each other. I, at one point, because my late mother lived near Fulton County and I was there, I propped up my laptop on one of those mailboxes. I was doing my own live reporting, like for Midas out in front of the courthouse at one point. I was surprised you and I didn't run into each other.
And then here's the second thing, though. They want travel records for election time last year. So in and around November of 2024, it's not going to include the now former boyfriend, former employee, right? It's not going to include him, Nathan. So I don't know why they're so curious to know in and about her travel around that time of election.
Well, there was one rumor at the time that just sort of popped into my brain that they thought she was coordinating with the Biden White House and Department of Justice about her prosecution. Now, we never thought there was any substance to that was all smoke and no fire.
Well, that was to get to the point to secure the indictment, though, against Trump and others, right? So that would have been prior to November of 2024. So that's why. But you know what, though, Mike, this is what we really need to think about this, like to not get so far in the weeds. This Department of Justice is a colossal waste of time and money, right? And I've said this too. You can't release the Epstein files, but you can indict James Comey. You can do travel records for Fani Willis. I mean, you can do all Amelia Earhart records can be released. Like, I mean, I don't think that's DOJ related, but this DOJ can't release the Epstein files.
Are we still looking for Amelia Earhart? Okay.
Well, Trump is apparently releasing the records because he can do it.
Well, because as you and I have said, this is as part of Trump's distraction methods. He brings major indictments or starts new investigations or drops new files to distract from the things that the American people care about. As soon as he has a bad news cycle, that's when Comey gets indicted. Things are going terrible with him. There's some new revelations.
Kimmel stuff. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's obvious. It's obvious. And look, Jamie Raskin said it aloud. He said, the James Comey thing, this is just a cover up for Epstein. This is just another layer of cover up on Epstein. And now, of course, there's new document
from the Epstein estate. Exactly. The timing is impeccable, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Lisa Cook now.
Sure.
So I'll frame it. Lisa Cook, one of 7 on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. In order to get control of the board, he needs another vote. If Trump gets control of the board, he gets ultimate control over who is one of the Federal Reserve regional bank presidents. Why does that matter? Because if he gets rid of Lisa Cook, he actually picks up 6 additional votes, which will give him 9 votes about interest rates. So 1 gets him 9 effectively. Right now, he's only controlling 3 votes out of 12 to set interest rates on the Federal Open Markets Committee. If he gets rid of her, they fire the 12 regional presidents, from which 5 get selected for the committee. So he gets 5 new votes plus the 4. 5 and 4 is 9. 9 to 3, he sets interest rates. That's what this is all about.
But he got his interest rate cut, though.
And he got his interest rate cut
Even when
because his
Lisa Cook
economy
did.
sucks.
Well, but my point is, for all of his bitching and moaning and going after Jerome Powell, he still secured his interest rate cut, even with Lisa Cook on the board, which is kind of undercutting any theory that he has that Lisa Cook would be some huge impediment for him to be able to.
No, in MAGA world, they think, see, that was good because then he pressured them. And,
no, in MAGA world, it's because she's black. And she's a female. It has nothing to do with her policies. It has nothing to do with her mentalities when it comes to interest rates. It's they just want to get rid of her because she's black and female.
I agree with that. There was a 12-0 vote to cut rates. The only disagreement was how deep to cut them. And the person that voted for the deeper cut is Donald Trump's White House economic advisor, who's privy to their own economic data that shows the Trump economy is failing. He put his hand up and said, we need a bigger boat. We got to cut these rates. I know more than you do over at the White House. And so I'm voting for deeper.
But that's it.
Right.
Again, Trump gets its cuts. And here's the thing. People need to be reminded, this is a 12-year term for these people. 12 or 14? 14. 14-year term. And it was intentionally set up to have a measure of independence so you wouldn't have to have interference and meddling from people like Donald Trump. And this attack on independence is the same thing with the Comey thing, right? Think about it, right? You rig indictments, you are taking away the independence of thoughtful, ethical prosecutors. And in this instance, you try to boot Lisa Cook, you're trying to attack the independence of this agency, right? And this board. But here's the thing, a lot of people were worried because the Supreme Court allowed somebody like Rebecca Slaughter on the FTC to be out of commission, out of her job, right? The Supreme Court allowed that to continue. But in this instance, Lisa Cook is differently situated than Rebecca Slaughter. In the interest of full disclosure, I work with Norm Eisen at Democracy Defenders, and Norm is co-counsel. Democracy Defenders is co-counsel with Abby Lowell representing Lisa Cook. And so I know all about the Supreme Court filing that was just done. Yeah. Here's the thing. The Supreme Court has the opportunity now to be able to say that this is a specific carve out in this particular, board that is going to not allow meddling from the executive branch. But I'm not holding my breath for this SCOTUS.
Well, here's where we are. The last brief is in. 3 days ago, Lisa Cook argued that her due process rights were violated because she was never given an opportunity to defend herself against the alleged mortgage fraud allegations. There is no mortgage fraud here. Reuters already outed this is a phony set of charges. She has a home in Annapolis, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She has a condo in Atlanta. She declares the Michigan home on her property taxes to be her primary residence. She declares she's told the lender that the condo is her second home. Yeah. And they gave her a rate, whatever. So nobody, in order for there to be mortgage fraud, somebody has to be defrauded.
Yeah. Who got duped? No one.
No one got duped. So and she gets to put that on in a due process hearing. Otherwise, what is for cause protection? Because the Supreme Court has said as recently as May that for the Federal Reserve, for cause means you can't fire at will a person on the Federal Reserve, at least the chairperson, but I think it applies to all of them. Donald Trump says, okay, I got a cause. I think she committed mortgage fraud. No, that's the equivalent of firing somebody without any proof. And that's not the firewall that the Supreme Court has said rings the Federal Reserve Board of Governors.
She should have the chance to have to prove that this hasn't happened, which, by the way, is horrific too, right? To have to prove you didn't commit a crime or do whatever. But she hasn't even had the chance to do that.
And that's the argument that her lawyers are making, as you know, but I'm telling the audience, which is to send this back to Judge Cobb at the trial court level and let her develop the facts on due process, find that she has a due process right, whether under equal protection of the 14th or the Fifth Amendment right to property can't be taken away from you without due process, send it back. Donald Trump's final brief from yesterday was John Sauer saying, in response to every living Fed chair from Greenspan, Bernanke, and Yellen, saying you cannot fire Lisa Cook. It will wreak havoc with the financial markets. You can't destroy the independence. She has a due process right. Their response was, the financial markets don't really care about Lisa Cook. And then I love this comment. Wait, it gets better. Then they said that one of the reasons that he should be allowed to fire her is that nobody cut off her building pass. I'm like, sorry? It sounds like another HR issue. Because we're all like, she's at work. She went to the Federal Open Markets Committee meeting 2 weeks ago. Yes. She voted. There's another one coming up in October. They said, well, it's because nobody cut off her building pass. She's insubordinate. Nobody respected Trump's firing. Like, nobody respected Trump's firing? That's your new defense?
Listen, and everybody needs to remember this John Sauer guy. Remember, he's the one who argued that SEAL Team 6 can be dispatched by a sitting president of the United States in the capacity of his role as president, and that it'd be okay to go and execute a political opponent.
Well, it's wait again.
That's the same lawyer.
How about the candidate for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals 2 weeks ago, who's a constitutional law professor? When they asked her about that, well, the Supreme Court hasn't really clearly ruled whether that's possible or not. Will you just say that SEAL Team 6 can't kill Biden on behalf of Trump? Will you just say it out loud? It's a case of first impression, but what's your impression?
Well, think about what Trump's just done right now, though, right? You know, he's indicting political enemies, a la James Comey right now. Absolutely. So he's one step away from taking it to the final solution, right?
So what they should do is find that she has a due process. Lisa Cook has a due process right, that she gets to be heard on this issue, and ultimately let Judge Cobb decide whether even for cause was properly made out under, because there has been little guidance from the Supreme Court on this. Is it inefficiency, neglect of duty, and malfeasance, or is it something else? But it can't be, hey, here's the cause. I don't like you. There's the door. That can't be.
And that's the thing, right? Because it's this constant pursuit of the expansion of executive powers. Right. That is the goal. And that really does fit actually with the Sauer argument about SEAL Team 6. Remember, the whole idea, even in that immunity case, was this idea that the president should have unchecked powers as the executive to be able to do these things. It's the same argument. Sauer has literally said to the Supreme Court that the president should never have to account for decisions he makes in his capacity as the executive. It makes me laugh, but it's galling to think that somebody can make that argument as an attorney with a straight face, and yet he does, and he did. This idea that Trump should never have to explain or meet otherwise applicable legal standards like firing somebody for cause. We all know this from just logical day-to-day life. You cannot just walk into a room and be like, you know what, I don't like you, bye, right?
That's
even in at-will employment states like Florida, you still can't do that shit. So this idea that the president can do that for somebody who sits in an independent agency like the Federal Reserve. But you know what, Mike, as I've gotten to this point, if the Supreme Court says it's fine and green lights this, and the economy tanks even further down into the abyss of hell, whose fault is that? It's Donald Trump.
Go dust off your wheelbarrow, because even as Donald Trump's own Council of Economic Advisors has said, every country, including the United States, where a president or a dictator has effectively taken over the central bank, has led to hyperinflation and crushing.
And in other countries.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And in this country, there's been times when Nixon was able to kind of get control of the Federal Reserve for a little bit while.
Nixon's a good comparison there.
Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we've been doing a podcast called Legal AF for the last 5 years. It's top rated, but that's on you. That's because of you. We appreciate everybody here. We subscribe to the hummingbird theory. The more people that watch, the more people that listen, the more people that go back and forth and leave a review, the better. And while you're here on the Midas Touch Network or on Legal AF, subscribe to both channels. And then we've got the Legal AF Substack, where we have live reporting at least twice a day, along with another 8 or 10 pieces of amazing content you can't find anywhere else on Substack. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popak Firm today at 1-877-POPAK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopakfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popak Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.